doing? How was the family? And how was the trip to the hot Cuban sun?
Cuba was wonderful. We had a fantastic time, fighting off a little bit of a flu right now. So, you'll have to forgive me if there's any excessive coughing, hacking, vomiting, flatulence. Well, the flatulence has nothing to do with the flu. That's just a personal choice, but I still apologize in advance.
That's strictly Taco Del Mar right there. But that's okay. You know what? I did a show a few days ago with Sean Cunningham, also battling the flu. I understand you were able to see some wrestling while in Cuba, yes?
I tell you, and it wasn't this past Monday, but it was the Monday before. I watched the entire Raw broadcast live and in Spanish, and let me tell you right now, Spanish is the new Japanese for me, man. I'll watch anything that WWE puts out if it's in Spanish. The Spanish commentators, although I could only pick up every third or fourth word, were so much better than Michael Cole and his crew of cronies. I just got this voiceover that I couldn't really understand, and I thought it was wonderful. I was really into it.
Now, was it a 3-hour broadcast?
It was the live show.
Really?
It was the live, in the same time slot, the live Raw show, completely in Spanish. They were even doing the voiceovers over top of people's promos, explaining what the guys were saying, which was fantastic for me whenever Triple H opened his mouth. So, yeah, it was great. I loved it. I have not enjoyed a Raw in so long.
Now, this was the Daniel Bryan, Seth Rollins main event, right?
Yeah.
Oh, so you actually saw a really good one. That's probably been the best Raw main event in ages.
If there's anyone out there who's fluent in Spanish that would like to kind of dub some old WWE tapes for me, please talk to Gloria in personnel, and we'll hook you up.
Put it on a CD for him. He can drive around with his kids and listen to it. Let's get right into it. There's a lot to talk about, and I mean a lot to talk about. But why don't we kind of start with, for God's sakes, there was 6.5 hours between the New Japan pay-per-view and NXT alone. What can you say? They both happened within the same day.
Yeah.
The best match, you could almost say the best two matches happened in Orlando. And do you want to start there with NXT? Because I think that was kind of the show of the day. There's a lot of similarities I think people are going to notice in these two reviews between the New Japan and the NXT show, in the sense that the undercard was pretty shitty, really. Hideo Itami defeated Tyler Breeze, and I wouldn't say that was shitty, but I mean, it was kind of just your average, B-level match. Hideo Itami started to show, I think, a bit more signs of his personality, which we haven't seen so much. I mean, we really haven't seen it all since he's come to the WWE, since he's been in NXT. But what did you think of this match?
It was good. I mean, it did what it was supposed to do. I don't think it was supposed to take away from anything else that was going on in the show. It was just supposed to be, continued exposure for Hideo Itami, to continue building him up. And I thought Tyler Breeze did a great job too. So it was solid for what it was. It was, again, I think they may have booked that match going, let's not get the crowd burned out yet, because they've got a big night ahead of them.
Right, yeah. The crowd seemed a little dead for that match, and for the next few matches, in fact. No disqualification match. Baron Corbin defeated Bull Dempsey. What can you really say about this match? It was a wrestling match. There were two wrestlers in the ring. They wrestled. But anyways, the next match as well. I like the Lucha Dragons a lot. This was a total styles clash, in my opinion. And I don't know if they've re-signed Mystico or something, and he's just gained a bunch of weight. But my God, Sin Cara was back to the old ways of just botcheroonies.
Yeah. Not
a good match. The next match, however, is when things started to get rolling, and they stayed at a high level for the rest of the show. But this was a rematch from the 2013 Best of the Super Juniors finals between Prince Devitt and Pac, now known as Finn Balor and Adrian Neville.
That was outstanding. I don't think we've really seen anything like that on NXT or even in North American programming in a while, where you take two guys at that level and just kind of turn them loose. There were a couple moves in that even as a longtime fan, I was kind of going, how did they pull that off?
With Balor, there's really not a lot of change from what he was doing before he left New Japan. And, whatever restrictions are being put on him, or just, not even restrictions, because I don't want to make it sound like it's all negative, the things that they teach you down there, because it's clearly not. He seems to me like the guy that's been just the absolute flawless transition, and he's still very true to what he was before, and this match absolutely, showed that in every way.
And to be fair to Kenta or Tommy, he really has had to reinvent himself out of necessity, right, because so much of his moveset has become now associated with other people in WWE.
Stolen. Let's say it.
And not stolen as in, Kenta was nowhere near a North American audience at the point when Punk and Bryan and other people were taking his moves. But now those, at least to the North American audience, that ownership belongs to someone else. So, and it's a good thing for Itami. I don't think it's a bad thing. for him to have to reinvent himself. But it is going to take him longer than Balor to get himself kind of in a comfortable, solid position.
Well, Balor's there. This match, I mean, it was just the final. If you were on the fence in any way, whether this guy could absolutely just sort of slide right into that top, even just the top mid-card mix. Balor doing the thing where you put the knees up from the splash and right into the
I know what you mean.
Small package, right into the small package. Yeah. That was a spot that he used with Kota Ibushi when Ibushi would do the moonsault, where he does the moonsault from the top rope, misses it, but lands on his feet and immediately hits another moonsault, and then Devitt puts the knees up in a small package. So they were doing like a lot of this stuff that they had, throwbacks that they had done in New Japan. And, we saw Seth Rollins at the Rumble do the Phoenix Splash. We've seen Kota Ibushi do the Phoenix Splash. To see Neville pull out the Phoenix Splash perfectly executed from the second rope. We talk about how difficult this move is from the top rope, folks. We're talking about you're facing backwards like you're going to do a moonsault. Instead of doing a moonsault, you completely change direction in midair into what would more look like a, swanton bomb, but then you keep going into a 450 splash. That is a hard move to do. To do that from the second rope from Neville, and I've seen him do it before, but again, I haven't seen it in a long time. And they really pulled out a lot of their stuff that you haven't seen in a while, and I thought that really made the match even more impressive, really.
It was fresh, wasn't it? It really felt like it wasn't just going to be one in a series or something you just kind of lump in with the rest of the show. It really stood out as something special. And again, one of those kind of benchmarks where you can say things are changing as far as WWE talent coming up. We've got a lot to look forward to, and I think that match kind of set that bar.
Would you say, Matt, was this your match of the night, or has...
It's hard to say, because the two matches were so different. I know that between this and the main event, they were a very different story being told. I wouldn't say it was a definitive match of the night. I would say the two matches together, I would probably rank together. I would have trouble picking a favorite out of the two.
Again, they're two very different matches. And this one, again, when I saw that Phoenix Splash, it reminded me of a match he had with Ricochet. And one of the most amazing spots or sequences I've ever seen in a match. And Ricochet, obviously. He's nuts. He's nuts. Basically, he had Ricochet down. He goes to the second rope, goes for the Phoenix from the second. Ricochet rolls out of the way, immediately goes to the other rope, and hits a Phoenix from the second. Both guys can do the move, and it's the hardest move in the world to do. But, I mean, again, great stuff. The thing with Balor, it's no longer about when he's ready. That can't even be a conversation anymore. It's what it is now is when creative is ready.
Yeah, it's a foregone conclusion right now that this is the top guy, not only in NXT, but very shortly to be one of the top guys in the main roster. I don't think there's any way to even... I don't even think they can screw it up at this point. I think they've shown that they're into what he does well. They've already kind of committed to it. So I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion.
I've said it from the beginning. As soon as I heard he was coming to WWE, I never had... You have these doubts, right, about guys like El Generico. He was somebody I thought would never make it in WWE. They reinvented him with Sami Zayn. Now I think he's the guy right behind Devitt that's ready, that is going to be a huge star. But with Devitt, I had no doubts because the guy can talk, the guy can work, obviously. Has worked all these different styles, has already been in front of big crowds, has main evented pay-per-views in front of big crowds. A pair of abs like that doesn't belong in developmental. You know what I mean? A guy that's as attractive as he is does not belong in developmental for very long. And I don't think the plan was ever for him to be there for very long. So again, like I say, it's no longer a question of when he's ready. It's a question of when WWE Creative is ready.
And really, I mean, they're best to use him now, in NXT to his fullest before they move him on, because he's not going to lose any momentum. He's just going to build it. It'll be better for NXT to build him up and let him have his moment there before he moves forward, just to benefit him and anyone that can get in the ring with him, really. I mean, he's one of those guys where I think anyone that gets in there with him is going to be better for it.
I really, really enjoyed the next match as well. Fatal 4-way for the NXT Women's Championship. Sasha Banks defeated Charlotte, Becky Lynch, and Bayley. All four of these girls, okay? And this is going to be a conversation you and I and Sean Cunningham and every podcast host probably around the world will be having. You have this new crop of girls that, as far as in-ring competitors go, are going to come in and are going to make all these other girls, all these other models, unemployed. Problem is, none of them have the look of a Vince McMahon chick. Like any one of them, you could look at them and say, they're unconventionally beautiful, right? And that's not a backhanded compliment. I just mean, like, look at the girls that Vince McMahon puts on his main roster. For the most part, they look like models, and none of these girls do. But these girls athletically and in the ring, not just athletically, in the ring now. Sasha Banks, like, she has improved so much.
You know, the focus has not been on their athletic ability or their wrestling ability. And Triple H seems to be very quietly making a shift away from that through NXT, as he's been making some pretty impressive shifts away from the way things run on the main roster. So again, I think that's another positive for the future.
Well, look at the mainstream recognition that Ronda Rousey gets in this day and age. Like, she's one of the most recognizable sports figures, and UFC is not even hot like it was before. And she's still one of the most recognizable sports figures in the world. So it's like, it's a really behind the times sort of vision, obviously, that Vince has for women in his product. This has been not a new thing. This is something, you had Trish Stratus come along.
But she, even there, she did that in spite of, I think, what she was intended to be.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
I don't think that it was ever a prerequisite. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For her to be a good wrestler. I think it was
No,
always...
that's what I mean. I think that there was a surprise that happened. I think that was entirely Trish. That's why I have such respect for her, because
for sure.
Because really, that wasn't what she was hired for. She could have done very well and had just as good a position just doing what Vince wanted her to do, which basically was to walk around in skimpy clothing. And, you know, I mean, she really changed wrestling in that way, where I think some of these girls now that are getting these options, I'm sure at least to some extent, look to Trish as an example of what you can do if you just decide you're going to be a good wrestler in spite of, you know, your position. So it's the thing, you know, and I know we're getting off topic as we're moving through the rest of this pay-per-view, but that really is sort of the symptom of everything that's gone wrong in WWE lately, is that whole Vince's disconnect with the product itself, not just with the audience, which I think is beyond obvious now, but the disconnect with his own product, that he doesn't really seem to be seeing it with clear vision. I don't know if you read the transcript of the conference call.
Yeah. Well, we'll save all this because we're going to have a long talk about this. Basically what happened in this match, Bayley hit the second rope. It's called the Bayley to belly. She hit that on Charlotte, went for the pin. Sasha pulled her off. Then she locked in a crossface on Charlotte, who refused to tap. And then Sasha turned the crossface into a crucifix and became the new NXT Women's Champion. There you go.
And perhaps a move there to transition Charlotte out of NXT now, I'm assuming, move her up to the main roster.
Main event, video package. Let's talk about the video package. Because it all boils down to the realism and the true story behind these guys. You've got these pictures of them when they're just kids, starting off from the same hometown, you know, had their very first match with each other. And I love what they're doing with Steen. I just think it's really, really a very intriguing character, what they're doing with him, where he's this villain, but he's got this human side, right? He's got a family, he's got a kid, and
he's a believable character. I mean, I don't think creative can take too much credit for this. Obviously, they've packaged it, but everything that they're using it's already there. There's a history between them. There's just an energy between them that you can't recreate with two random guys. And again, they seem to have tapped into a real version of the Steen character that's at least tied to who he really is.
As you say, just take what's given. You don't need to overthink it. You don't need to overproduce it or overwrite it. It's all right there in front of you. You just got to roll with it.
Here's the thing that I find is the strength of NXT. Is that it really boils down to they seem to have more confidence in their talent than the main roster does. There seems to be more of an ability to let loose and go, okay, guys, you've got this. I have confidence in you to do it. Go out there and do your thing. Rather than to micromanage and just have everything under somebody's thumb, as it is with Vince's in the main roster. On NXT, you get more of a feeling that these guys are getting a real live education. Not just an education in what to do, but an education in what they're actually capable of doing. And it really shines through in those kind of situations.
Well, and from everything I'm hearing, too, it's really like Triple H sort of oversees this kid named Ryan Ward. It's not this huge booking team clashing on all these ideas and then having Vince, rewrite everything anyways. You know what I mean? It's like you've got one guy with a vision, which has really kind of been what a lot of people have said has been one of the huge strengths of New Japan. Long term is that they've got a guy with a clear vision who has his, best friend as his sort of assistant booker. And you don't have all the too many cooks in the kitchen. Sorry to use the old cliche, but I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So you really have a singular vision, and Triple H, obviously, like you say, yeah, like he's giving people the freedom to do their thing, and we saw that in this match as well. These guys have obviously had a lot of classic matches in Ring of Honor, and this was another classic match, I would say. First of all, Sammy. This guy had his working shoes on, and he always does. But I thought when he hit that,
the first plancha at the beginning?
Yeah, the very first one, I thought he was going so damn fast. He flipped over so fast, I swear he blew both knees out.
Honestly, I watched it this morning. I didn't watch it when it was live. I watched it this morning, and I thought that there was something wrong with the feed because of the speed he was moving when he went over the ropes. I actually had to stop and rewind it and went, "Wow, what was that, right?" He was just flying, man.
In this whole match, he was working. He was working even harder than he always does. This was something different. He was taking some bumps that made me extremely nervous. The one where he got thrown into the corner and he did like this kind of spiraling flip out of the corner and landed on his arm. Did you see that? Landed right on his shoulder.
It was madness.
I also couldn't believe the one where he got the suplex onto the rope. The way he sold that. Yeah. This guy is like the greatest baby face. He's really the greatest baby face in the whole business right now.
Oh yeah, like that's. At first I was a little let down that they'd taken the belt off him so quickly, but then it just works so well with Sammy being the guy fighting his way up. It's going to be fun to watch him do a series with Owens now, trying to get that title back.
Yeah, so all kinds of great spots. I felt like the early stages of the match, it didn't feel like that grudge match thing, but the other side of the coin being, this was really chapter 1 of this feud.
Yeah.
And you really do need to look at this match that way. You need to remember, if this is Rocky 3, this is the first with Clubber, right? He fights Clubber early in the movie and gets his ass kicked.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is just the first 45 minutes of Rocky 3.
But without the Hogan match.
Right. And I think NXT has kind of shown that they're not just going to be dropping stories left and right. Like I said, there is some kind of a singular vision. And you're going to
focus and patience in their program.
Patience is the word. I think every wrestling fan is constantly searching for that word when they're trying to explain what's wrong with WWE right now. This match ends when Owens repeatedly powerbombs Zayn, and Owens will just look at the crowd or something. The doctors are constantly, getting their hands in there and just trying to check him quickly, and the referee sort of communicating with the doctors. I thought it was some fantastic drama, really, those last few minutes of that match. The doctors keep rolling in and checking him whenever he gets a free second, and the referee seems to be being influenced by the doctors that he might have to stop this one.
I think it's hard to do a stoppage storyline well, but they did do it well. They sold it, and again, they had you guessing. How much of this is real? Did Sammy, because God, if you had told me Sammy was legit concussed or that he'd broken his collarbone, there are probably a dozen spots in the last, half of that match where I'd say, oh yeah, that's probably what happened right there. So, they built the realism around that idea so that when they finally did call it, there was you were prepared for it, and it was dramatic.
Because there's going to be people that say, you complain when they do the finish on Raw where the guy kicks too much ass and they, stop the match. It's a lazy finish.
Yeah.
But this wasn't lazy in any way. This was well thought out. It was dramatic. There were steps to it, and it kept on building and building, and the tension was building of, I think the refs are actually going to, stop this.
And they built, it wouldn't work with just anybody, but they built that connection and that empathy and sympathy with Sammy, so that you kind of wanted it to stop because you kind of wanted him not to get hurt anymore. And that's something that you can't often pull off, that emotional connection with the crowd, where they'll accept a stoppage for the good of the guy they're stopping it for.
There was the shoot element of, this guy has taken a ton of shit. Even the Arabian press to the outside, where he came down again really hard on the back of his head, right on that grate. And, there were all these different times in that match where you were like, I love that move Steen does where he sort of, how would you explain it? He gets him up in a suplex where he's kind of got the arm twisted between the legs, and he drops him on the knee. That should be his finish right there.
Yeah.
But then again, maybe the one that he has right now is a bit better in the sense of he can do it to more people. It's a move that he can do to anybody, big or small, really. So, the finish, again, great. A lot of different sort of twists. And the cool thing is, too, when they pulled, what's his name? They pulled Owens into the corner sort of thing, and they stopped the match. And I think because you're watching a WWE product still, you automatically have that panic of, they screwed the match. we're not even going to get a finish, you know, and you forgot what a stoppage really should mean in a match, a title match, you know, and then you see the referee grab the belt and hand it to Owens, and the crowd puts it all together that this is real, this is legit. And again, this was chapter 1, and it wasn't just, you know, your average finish to a wrestling match. It certainly had some drama at the end and a hook to keep you, you know, interested. What's the next stage? Especially now that Balor's the number 1 contender too.
Yeah, that's really, I think in that show they really set the stage for, yes, Sammy's going to do a series with Owens, and you know, he may get it back eventually. It may take him a while, but there's also going to be Balor thrown into the mix against Owens, and that's going to be like lightning in a bottle.
So there was NXT, a very good show. Moving over to the New Japan show, there is a show, another pay-per-view this week from New Japan. It will be happening Saturday morning, live. This show was not live on New Japan World. Saturday morning, I believe the show will start around 4 in the morning, but usually the first hour of these shows really isn't, you're not missing much. So if you wake up around 5 or 5:30 or 6, you'll still see the main events and everything like that. So it's really kind of a fun thing to do in the morning when you're drinking your morning coffee. And the show on Saturday to be headlined by Nakamura defending his Intercontinental title against Yuji Nagata, a legend. So this should be a really good match. This show, however, it's interesting, you know, Osaka is one of the usually the most excited crowds that they perform in front of. Really what you're seeing is very similar to the post WWE WrestleMania hangover in New Japan right now. After Wrestle Kingdom, this is a bit of a downtime, and this was sort of like the WrestleMania Revenge Tour. It was a lot of rematches from Wrestle Kingdom. So just to go through the show here, Sho Tanaka defeated Yohei Komatsu. These are 2 young lions that usually start these shows. Actually, usually the first match will be 2 young guys in black tights and black boots when you are sort of breaking in from the dojo and you're not given a gimmick and you don't have a personality. You're supposed to go out there and wrestle and earn your stripes. And these guys had a really good opening match. You know, 2 really talented guys. Tiger Mask and Mascara Dorada, CMLL talent, one of the top luchadors in the world, who has signed now full-time with New Japan for this year. They defeated Manabu Nakanashi and Captain New Japan. This was just a match. Again, solid, okay. But the crowd was really dead for this show, pretty much all the way through. And really what it comes down to is it's just, I think that they see so much, the standard is so high, and this didn't meet up to the standard, and maybe even the ones that did, it's just they've seen these pairings a little too much. It's not fresh. There's a little bit of staleness happening in New Japan for the next few months. And for G1, the summer, things always pick up. It's always a really hot time, and a time I look forward to very much this year because of the whole, you know, New Japan World. But I don't know what the NWA offers. Conway and Owens are way in over their head. Again, there's a certain standard in New Japan, and crowd really was not into this other than Liger, obviously, being a legend. Conway and Chase Owens actually defeated Liger and Tenzan. So a fine match, but nothing to write home about. So again, like we said in NXT, a pretty shitty undercard. The card got better at this point. Kota Ibushi defeated Hanma, which was a great match. Two really like over baby faces. That's what that match is. That's like 2 white meat baby faces going in there and just having a good wrestling match. And it was good on paper, and it really did deliver. I think it was a good match. One of the top matches of the show. Next match, Young Bucks defeated Red Dragon and the Time Splitters. So the Young Bucks have once again become the IWGP Junior Tag Team Champions. It was very similar to their Wrestle Kingdom match. They pulled out some different things. Kozlov has actually retired from the industry right now, so Forever Hooligans is no more. Rocky Romero.
I let out a little sigh. Oh.
I know, it is a sad thing, because they were a good tag team, and it was a great gimmick, and they had a great theme song. Kenny Omega defeated Taguchi to retain the IWGP Junior Championship. Nothing wrong with this match. It wasn't as good as their Tokyo Dome match. There was a few cool spots. Taguchi he was basically going to put him up for that cool finish. Omega was that cool one-winged angel, and Taguchi ended up giving him a reverse Hurricane Rana, which looked really deadly. But the crowd didn't give these guys anything. They were not into this match. Taguchi, again, he really does bring down the junior division. Only positive thing really coming out of this match, which was fine, but again, the crowd didn't seem to think so. The only positive thing coming out of this match, Mascara Dorada came down to the ring, and it looks like he will be the next challenger. And again, he's one of the top luchas in the world. So I think this is starting to get things in the right direction. And the crowd seemed to really like this because this was, again, something new and fresh, and we got something cool coming up. Next match, Okada and Sakuraba and Toriano defeated Bad Luck Fale and Takahashi and Tama Tonga. At this point, I'm thinking to myself, is Gato on vacation? Because what is with these pairings? What is with these matchups? But what they've been doing on the shows over the last few weeks, and for those that don't know, on New Japan World, one of the really cool things is that not only do they put up these really produced house shows, they also will sometimes just put on a house show where they just put a camera in the stands, and you can just watch a house show like you're there, like you're actually sitting in the arena watching. So it's kind of cool. It's like in this tiny little arena, and you can just kind of put it on in the background while you're doing your work, and you can really feel like you're keeping up with the tour and everything like that. But the 3 shows, the Road to New Beginning shows that they've been putting up there, is Okada is depressed following his loss to Tanahashi at Wrestle Kingdom 9. You saw the tears there at the end when he was walking back to the dressing room. But what they've been doing ever since is that he has gone in matches which involved Bad Luck Fale, and Bad Luck Fale in all 3 of the matches has given him the powerbomb and pinned him clean. So they've been doing this thing of Okada's been shaken by this loss and he's off his game, and in this they gave him a bit of redemption. He got to hit the Rainmaker on Tama Tonga and got the 1-2-3. So I guess they're going to start building him up that he's going to get the heart of a lion back again. There was just no spark behind any of this stuff, and there was a bit of staleness, and the matchmaking was a bit funky. Next match though, Yuji Nagata and Satoshi Kojima and Tetsuya Naito defeated Shinsuke Nakamura and Tomohiro Ishii and Yoshihashi.
I didn't get to see the whole card just because of time constraints, but this was one I had to watch just because it had Nakamura and Ishii in the same match, and I'm a big fan of both those guys. And it was a good match. I mean, it was fun. It did seem off and not in a bad way.
You must have been able to tell that the crowd was not into it like usual.
Yeah, it was for a Nakamura match. It was off. They still responded to them, but it was still an interesting match, though. It seemed like one of those, for some reason, I can't quite put my finger on it. It seemed like one of those times back in the old days when we'd pick up a Coliseum video from the video store, and there'd be some match with 6 dudes in it fighting each other that you hadn't seen them ever fight before, and it just seemed a little off but fun. I had that same feeling with this.
And they kind of teased stuff with Nagata and Shinsuke. They didn't give them away too much because, again, they have the big match coming up on Saturday. We'll see what happens in that match. Yuji Nagata is a fantastic wrestler for the fact that he's almost 50 years old. He really can go. I love when he puts the demon arm lock, where he puts the guy in the arm lock and then rolls his eyes like the Undertaker, but it looks like a little kid trying to imitate the Undertaker. Yuji Nagata's cool as far as I'm concerned. He's kind of got that tough dad sort of thing about him. But again, this match, one thing I don't know about, and maybe people can let me know what the latest is, Satoshi Kojima was in this match filling in for Togi Makabe, there seems to be some kind of a problem with Makabe, some kind of an injury, some kind of something or another that has kept him off the tour, and he does have the rematch against Ishii still being promoted for the Saturday show. So I don't know very much about that. I love Makabe. The next 2 matches, Doc Gallows and Carl Anderson defeated Haruki Goto and Katsuyori Shibata. Short reign for them. They won the titles at Wrestle Kingdom 9. It was the big feel-good story, and Bullet Club prevailing on this show. Doc Gallows and Anderson getting the titles back. I did not see that coming. It was a longer match than the Tokyo Dome show. A very good match, actually. But again, same problem with the crowd. They're burnt out. They're seeing too much, and you've given them too much damn good wrestling.
Yeah, it's true. That is the drawback, really, when you're delivering a product at that level consistently, is that there is a burnout, and there is kind of like, where do I go from here? What did you think of the main event? Because I have to say, although the crowd was still not at a fever pitch that you'd expect, I thought they were a bit more into this one, and I personally thought it was an amazing match.
There were circumstances in this match that you have to understand. For one being that Tanahashi doing the high fly flow there pretty much on the whole Bullet Club, and they showed it in the replay, and he went head to head with Matt Jackson and completely split his eye open.
There was a lot more blood in that match than I was anticipating for a New Japan match.
And that was hard-way blood. And Matt Jackson, I haven't heard anything regarding concussions, but I would assume that at least Tanahashi was concussed. And that was pretty early in the match. So you got to factor that into the rest of the match. I had heard rumors. I had heard talk going into the show. They're putting the belt back on AJ.
It's not a bad move.
It's not a bad move. It's not a bad move. And what did you think of sort of the way it went down, though? Because there was a bit of interference. They beat them down. They beat up Captain New Japan. And then that happened early in the match, though. And then there was really no more interference. And for a Bullet Club match, usually there's a ton, but there wasn't any more, I don't think.
The finish was really good, I thought. I thought the last 3 minutes of the match.
Clean, though. It was a clean finish for AJ.
It was. There were so many times that they teased a finish, that, they kept teasing the move off the top, and they kept teasing, that AJ was going to get his finisher, and then he dropped him in sort of a pile driver, modified pile driver, and just kept going back and forth. I kept thinking, when is he going to get it? When is he going to get it? So I thought it was a pretty suspenseful ending. I'm happy with AJ taking the title right now, because honestly, AJ Styles, I think, is one of the most capable and interesting guys in New Japan, and that's saying that about New Japan. New Japan is like this stacked talent-wise, but AJ is just so fun to watch, and anything that keeps him near the top of the card makes me happy. And
I don't think people realize how big of a deal it is for a foreigner to be the world champion, and for them to put that faith in AJ, with the building blocks of Gato's booking. And this is something that WWE does not have. Over the last 3 years, there's only been 3 IWGP heavyweight champions: Tanahashi, Okada, and Styles. Styles defeated Okada for the title. Tanahashi defeated AJ for the title, and now AJ's defeated Tanahashi for the title. Really what they're doing is creating 3 guys that are all at the same level.
Yeah.
And you're trying to create 3 guys that, if these guys are in matches with each other, any one of the 3 at any time could win, because they're all at the same level. WWE has had a very hard time creating any other 2 guys that are at the same level as John Cena. And that's the one thing that New Japan seems to really get, is that you need to have more than one guy at that very tippy top. And so what they've created now is 3 guys that are equal. So I think that, in that sense, that's pretty damn cool.
I agree with you, and that is the strength, really, of their booking, of their top card booking. They are not stuck, really, with a one-trick pony like WWE tends to have now, where you have John Cena at one level and everyone else is just sort of the poor man's John Cena. So I do enjoy that in New Japan, having that idea that any one of those 3 guys could be champion,
right?
And not just to grab it, just to get a cheap pop, but I mean, to hold it and to be a solid top guy. Any one of those 3 guys could do it at any time.
Right, and you said it right there. It's not just something where it's a hot potato and they're dropping it every month or something like that. Each one of those 3 guys has had a good reign, and then they trade it back. And it's kind of an interesting thing. Like, Okada's never beat AJ for the title. AJ's beaten Okada and Tanahashi for the title. Tanahashi has beaten both AJ and Okada for the title. So it's like one of those things that you've got these 3 guys that are all being perceived at the exact same level of greatness in this great roster. And now you open yourself up for some cool things as well, because we've talked about the fact that, they need to start freshening things up, and they will. Going into the G1, they always tend to. AJ has never wrestled Nakamura. That match has never happened.
Ooh.
So you have matches that have not happened yet. AJ's next title defense will be in April against the winner of the New Japan Cup. So, I mean, you could have something where, Ibushi wins the cup and he's the next guy to challenge. There's a fresh match, and there's a great match. Nakamura, you still have that hanging in the balance that he's never wrestled AJ. That's another thing they do really good, is that there's dream matches that they don't give away. They hang on to it. They don't have all this television to fill like WWE. I would say track down the NXT show before you track this down.
I would agree with you there.
At the same time, for a Saturday afternoon when you're sitting around the house, this is a fun show to watch. It was a fun show, not up to the standard. So, moving along, Mr. Shotgun Shan.
There is a lot of news. I mean, what do you want to cover first? I think the Darren Young thing is really fascinating right now.
Go ahead.
You're going to have to help me with the specifics, because I can't remember exactly what was said. But as some of you may know, Darren Young did not go on the recent tour of Abu Dhabi. It was Abu Dhabi, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. And essentially, and he, the speculation has been because of their attitude towards homosexuals, that it might not be in his best interests. And Darren did, in fact, post some things on his Twitter feed, saying that he felt as though, he was alone, no one had his back, and that his right to free speech was being impeded because I guess they'd asked him to take down some of his tweets. And it really opens up some pretty interesting, conversation about this whole topic. And how do you deal with something like that when you're a global company that goes all over the world and you suddenly find that you're coming to a part of the world where certain members of your organization are not welcome? I don't know. I mean, it really is a tricky situation, isn't it? Because it's not like they should necessarily say, we're not coming there because you don't like gay people when we have gay people on our roster. And at the same time, it does seem as though something should be said about it. Maybe it was just handled exactly the way it should have been, in that the word got out. Darren Young was unhappy about it, and WWE did issue something saying that they support him.
My take, like you say, it's a very complicated thing. WWE's not the only company to run in Abu Dhabi. UFC was in Abu Dhabi. A lot of people do business there, and you know why? Because, like Darren Young said, millions of dollars.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money to be made there. The way that they do business, and business is not necessarily ethical. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, the other thing too is that you got to kind of also look at it as in, well, this may be a prevalent idea there, but it doesn't necessarily mean that every single person supporting your product feels that way. Maybe some people wanted to see Darren Young. So, you're taking a global standard as sort of this is what people in Abu Dhabi think and trying to apply it to a business model. I don't know. It's a hard situation. I thought it was interesting. I think it's nice to get a voice and to get information out about these things, saying, yes, well, Darren Young isn't really safe going to Abu Dhabi necessarily because of their feelings about gay people, and having WWE step in and say that they support him. I think that I can't complain too much about the way it was handled.
It really is a complicated thing, and maybe we'll have to just wait to see how this one plays out. We don't want people to start telling what they really feel. Seth Rollins will have to wait and see. It really seemed like he was on the rise. It seemed like he was the one guy that seemed to just be a sure thing of the Shield members right now. But maybe that will change going into this after that very embarrassing moment there where this was all being shared on the WWE feed. I was going to say on the WWE network. Can you believe? Well, there's some good segue right there, though. What is your take on the rumor right now? And if you watch the TV, I mean, it seems pretty obvious where they're going for WrestleMania. There has been a shift, and a lot of people are saying, Vince, regardless of whatever public front he may put on, that he took notice of that crowd, and some changes have been made, and it will be a triple threat match. What are you thinking of this idea for WrestleMania? And
here's the thing. Here's what I'll say. We're coming into Fastlane, and this match with Daniel Bryan and Roman Reigns has more possibilities to it than I think any match I've watched in the last 2 years, 3 years, as far as potential of things can happen. There's almost a quantum physics aspect to this, of potentiality. There are all these different things that could happen in this one little match, and each one of them could really set off things, set off circumstances in a whole different direction. I mean, one, this could be course correction, and they could say, yeah, Reigns isn't ready, and they may have Bryan go over and have Reigns either continue a face and slow him down and take him later, or have him turn heel as a result. They may have Reigns turn heel and win, turn on Bryan in some way and become a full-blown heel and really take advantage of the sort of apathy that the fans seem to have towards him and the resentment that's built up. Not that any of it's deserved, but I mean, it's circumstantial. The other aspect to this is it could just be Vince going, screw you. And they put them in the match, have Reigns go over clean, the crowd boos, Reigns stays the face and goes to WrestleMania. There's a lot of ways it could go. I don't want to present myself as a negative person because I try not to be in real life. When it comes to this stuff, I find it really hard to believe that Vince has learned anything. I always feel like he's been in sort of this very public battle with the fans for several years now, sort of trying to control them and fighting back against them. I hope that something comes out of this that's positive for Reigns. I think anything that comes out of this is going to be fine for Bryan. I think he's over enough, and even if the fans cool on him, I was actually thinking he got a bit of a mixed reaction in one of the matches, and I can't remember which one it was.
They're cooling.
Yeah, they're cooling, and
they're cooling.
And I thought, that's not a bad thing. I think that it would be a real good slap in the face for Vince to see the one guy he has that's really over start to cool off too, and go, oh, well, geez, what's happened? We took Bryan for granted for so long. What's happening now? Well, Vince, you kind of fucked him over for a while here, and you made the fans not believe in you anymore, and this is what's happening. So, I mean, generally I'm pretty protective of Bryan, but I think it would be okay to see him cool off a little bit and have them feel the need to step in and support him. What do you think's going to happen?
Do you think that what happened at the Royal Rumble was because their guy didn't win, or do you think what happened at the Royal Rumble was their guy not getting treated with respect? Did he have to win that match? Or was it a matter of it was the way it was handled, it was sort of a bit of an insult to the fan, they kind of figured out what Vince was trying to do, and their guy wasn't treated with respect? Is this more about respect than a world title or being, put, the winner of the Royal Rumble?
I think it's respect. I think it's things falling into the proper order. I think when the fans are really highly supporting somebody and you don't really give that guy an appropriate amount of attention, whether it's a title shot or whether it's just being treated like a feature player. When you don't do that and then you give that attention to someone else who maybe the fans like fine, but they're not behind him.
Not the guy. They're not behind him like that. No.
No. But you know, I mean, when he was in the Shield, people thought he was pretty cool. Mm-hmm. And I think if he'd been brought up slowly, people would have been more behind him. But I think when you take that and you just kind of, it's almost like turning away from what the fans are doing and what they're really into and saying, no, we're going to put it on this guy. I think you're automatically asking for trouble. Brian wasn't treated with respect. He was brought in and then shuffled out very quickly before Reigns even got in the ring. And I think people were pretty smart for that as soon as it happened. And you have to remember that in the same night, Dolph Ziggler was brought in as sort of this last-ditch fan favorite and then very unceremoniously dumped as well.
Well, that's what I've been saying to people, too, is like, It wasn't just Daniel Bryan wins or we riot.
No, I don't think people would have.
Because you got to admit, that is a dangerous place to be in for a company where I can understand the idea that you don't want the fans running the show in a lot of ways. You want to maintain, in any entertainment, want to maintain some control of, what you're doing and not just let, again, I hate the term vocal minority. At the same time, John Cena sells a lot more merchandise than anybody in that company. And if you watch TV, you would think he was the biggest failure a lot of the time. You'd think he was a complete flop. When in actuality, he's kind of the guy still to this day carrying the company.
No, you're right. The fans should not be dictating it. But at the same time, they really should. Because if they had followed what the fans were into before, and let's go back years. Let's go back to CM Punk. Let's go back, and I don't want to bring Punk up much anymore because he's not really relevant to wrestling anymore, but this is sort of where it started. With Punk and then Bryan and Ziggler and some of these other guys that the fans were really into, but Vince kind of turned his nose up against to an extent. Obviously, all those guys got their moments, but they never really got that golden touch of the office going, we're gonna believe in you enough to take what the fans are putting into you and put some of that of ourselves into you. This has been an ongoing problem that's kind of snowballed into all the things that have happened to them now, which is a weird product model where they're not really going to listen to the audience and they're going to just follow their own vision, which is, I can't fault someone for doing that, but you have to expect that if you're going to disregard your fans while at the same time calling them your universe and making it seem as though they're interacting, I think eventually you're going to get the backlash. And I think that's all that really is. I mean, I don't think people would have been as angry if Daniel Bryan had fought the majority of that Rumble, come in early, put on a huge performance. Fans would have been having a great time with him and had some kind of significant ending, at least some guy that he was going to feud with, setting it up for WrestleMania. Instead, it was just Wyatt kind of put him out unceremoniously, and it was over. And I don't think you take a guy that the people are that passionate about and mistreat him in that way.
This just kind of shows you everything you need to know regarding people that want to say it's all a conspiracy theory, that they really do love Brian and, vegan from Aberdale, Washington with a wooden watch. Do you want to know why Randy Orton wasn't in the Rumble?
Why?
Because they thought it would be bad for Randy to come back before the Rumble and not win. That would make him look weak. There's your proof. They didn't want to bring Randy back. They felt like that would sort of cool him off right away. And what do they do with Daniel Bryan? Exactly that. I don't care if he's in the main event of WrestleMania. I don't care if Bryan fights for the title this year. To be honest with you, because he's just coming back and the whole neck injury and the fact that it's Brock Lesnar, I don't even think it's a very good idea for his body to be in that match. Yeah. With that said, I thought that he should come back after the Rumble. They should start a feud with somebody that disrespects him on his night back or whatever, and not Kane, anyone else. And that can be his WrestleMania program this year. I was never thinking he needs to go in there, he needs to win the title, it's got to be about Bryan or we riot. Because I agree that is entitled. Wrestling fans in general, they are conditioned, like you say, and they don't have the organization, the discipline, the willpower to actually vote with their dollar. They don't have the organization or discipline to actually cancel a network or actually do anything that shows Vince, because Vince is going to have to see this in numbers for him to change, okay? It's never going to happen with reactions. It's never going to happen with anything else. He's got to, for him to really get it in his brain and change, it's going to have to be business goes down.
Yeah.
And that hasn't happened. And are you kind of like tempting fate to sort of taunt these fans and say, you guys will never You'll never leave me, and no matter what I do or matter how pissed off you get, you're still going to come back the next day, which he's right. He is right. The people that get angry are the ones that will come back the next day. It's the people that have apathy towards it. It's the people that just look at it and say, this is stupid. I'm going to turn this off. Those people you need to be afraid of. But I just think it's an interesting situation. And going into this whole Fastlane thing, this is how you need to book Roman. Because if he is the guy, and we can't change that, if this is a decision that's been made for whatever reason, you got to put him in there with guys that are going to make him look good, because you haven't been so far. But if Roman's the guy, we can't change that. You got to put him in there with guys that are going to make him look good. You got to get past this whole thing of he hasn't even had one good match yet, really. This is smart. This is what you have to do. Because wrestling is only going to work as much as these guys and as much as the quote-unquote vocal minority isn't ever going to stop watching. They can ruin your show. And they have ruined your show. So it's one of those situations where you're not going to be able to just stop that from happening by just being heavy-handed and saying, fuck you, we're not letting you dictate. We're putting Bryan out early and it's going to be Reigns, damn it. You're not going to be able to stop this with that kind of a mentality. You've got to please everybody. You've got to make sure everybody is happy.
Well, and let's just be sensible here. When a guy's as over as Bryan is, he should be in a major match at WrestleMania.
Yes.
If you're not going to put him in the world title match, that's fine. Give him something else. It's the whole idea that, and I think has really plagued them thus far, that if you aren't the golden child, we're not really going to bother with you. And I think that's, again, we were talking about how in New Japan they have a bunch of guys that are near the top that are all at an equal level that can be top guys. And I really kind of feel like they kind of turn their nose up at Bryan early, and fine and good, because if you tried to market your entire company to non-wrestling fans, to introduce them to it, and they said, and here's our champion, Daniel Bryan, the first question on people's minds would be, wow, he's little, and he's got this big beard, and he's kind of crazy looking. So I can understand them saying they don't necessarily want Daniel Bryan to be the flagship dude for their company. But to not put him at the very, very, very close to the top and consistently keep him there and consistently show the fans that they understand that they like him and they want him to be there. To not do that's kind of crazy. And that's really kind of what they've done is said, he's not the guy. So he's only going to go so far. We're going to keep him there. You know what? You don't have the guy right now. Roman Reigns is not the guy. You might think he is, and maybe one day he might be, but he's not the guy right now. So go with the guy that they want. And I don't necessarily mean as champion, but keep him near the top and showcase him to death.
Exactly. It's too much too soon. But at WrestleMania, I think there's a way you can make this all work. You're going to put Bryan in that match. The thing is, you're going to have to turn Reigns heel. Yeah. And I hope that they're okay with that. It's still
SmackDown spoilers yet?
No.
When is the show airing?
Oh, yes, I did. They do like a gauntlet or something like that.
It's a tag team turmoil match, where Reigns and Bryan have to fight a whole bunch of tag teams. And by the end of the night, Bryan has gotten 4 eliminations, and Reigns has only gotten 1, and Reigns is getting really, apparently, quite pissed about it.
Right.
So I think they're setting the seeds.
It's all there. You've got something like we talked about with NXT. Like, sometimes you just need to not overthink it and just look at all, like, everything is laid out right in front of you. That segment, I don't know if you saw it the night after the Royal Rumble where they did the in-studio show. Did you get to see any of that?
I did watch some of it, yeah.
Like, the stuff with Reigns and Brock and Heyman, they laid everything out perfect. I mean, the table is set. That was brilliant stuff from Paul Heyman, and you could easily have the whole thing of Heyman being in Reigns' ear and have WrestleMania be a situation where in that match, Reigns turns heel, he does some dirty shit. It could even be as simple as Brock is selling in the corner, Bryan and Reigns are doing their thing, and Heyman trips Bryan.
Yeah.
Reigns capitalizes on the trip, hits him with the spear.
Yeah.
After the match, Bryan's like, what are you doing? You know, that whole babyface thing of what are you doing? And what, I thought at least you and I would be sportsmanlike about this. And then you have him beat up Bryan. You have Heyman smiling. And then you can even have him turn on Brock. Have a thing of Brock being like, what are you doing with this guy? What do I thought I'm your guy. What's this guy? And then you beat up Brock.
That's what they're going to have to do. I think that's what they're going to have to do if they want to get what they want out of Reigns. And they should have done from the beginning. Make him a really interesting, cocky, cool, nasty heel. And let the eventual face character kind of evolve out of that over time. He needs time, and he needs guidance, and he needs the right guys to work with. So what you've said there, I think, makes a lot of sense.
Because I think that if you do the babyface white meat wins the title now. Again, it's too damn early. There's going to be too much resentment. I know you can look at John Cena and say, well, yeah, but he didn't actually. When you first turned him, he didn't. That didn't happen actually until that WrestleMania with Triple H. That was where the sort of mixed reaction for John Cena started. He got that spot when he was hot. He got that spot when he'd proven he can talk, he can work if he's led. And Roman hasn't proven that, but we've said that a million times on this show. You got to find a way to make that work, Vince. That's all. Because the fan base that seems to back those guys and seems to be very vocal and can ruin your show. Like, you don't want that at WrestleMania. You've had it now 2 years at Royal Rumble. There is a way to please everybody. If the final moments of WrestleMania are that the fans are booing and then you have Reigns, turn, it's all going to work out. You're going to look like you know what you're doing.
That's really what it comes down to, isn't it? To make it look like they know what they're doing.
I think that's all anybody really wants. Yeah. If we're entitled just because we want to see people that seem to know what they're doing. They can do the most of anybody. That's why we hold them to a different standard. Yes, they're sports entertainment, but they have been creatively bankrupt. They've got no ideas. Even this Bryan and Reigns thing, we've seen this one a million times. The two baby faces that can't get along. Like, this one's been done to death. These are just the same angles being recycled. All I want is some fresh ideas. I don't need all my guys to get pushed. I just need to see people that know what they're doing. So Shotgun Shan, I think we'll end it on that note. Thank you for being with me. Your voice held up just magnificently.
Thank you.
And take care of yourself and tell the family I said hello. Hope everybody's feeling great by the time we do a show next week. And who knows what we'll have to talk about next week. You never know what could happen in the wild world of wrestling.
That's true, my friend.
So from me, from Shotgun Shan, from the entire Wrestling Audio Revolution crew, we want to say peace, love, war, and promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Just like what you say. Freedom of speech. Yeah. Just like what you say. Freedom of speech. Yeah, boy. Just like what you say. You have the right to remain silent. Fuck that right. I want the right to talk. I want the right to speak. I want the right to walk where I wanna. Yelling I'm gonna. Tell and rebel every time I'm on a microphone on the stage, cold illin'. The knowledge I drop will be heard by millions. We ain't the problems, we ain't the villains. It's the suckers, the pride, and the truth from our children. You can't hide the fact, Jack. There's violence in the streets every day. Any fool can recognize that. But you try to lie and say America's some motherfucking apple pie. Yo, you gotta be high to believe that you're gonna change the world by a sticker on a record sleeve. Cause once you take away my right to speak, everybody in the world's up shit creep. Freedom of speech. Yeah. Just watch what you say. Freedom of speech. Yeah, boy. Just watch what you say. Freedom of speech. You better watch what you say. Explicit lyrics. Explicit lyrics.